So let's backpedal a tiny bit. You hadn't heard of these murders, these rapes, but you read the newspaper one day and something must have said, I'm going to write about this. Now, what about this case, after
it's very simple.
One, yeah.
Very simple, because the reason that I got 3 contracts, one in London, one in New York, and one in Toronto, virtually simultaneously from different publishers, is because my pitch was virtually 2 lines. And everyone else was writing, sending in, the newspaper people who wanted book contracts were sending in, 10-page proposals and whatnot. And I simply said in mine, I get it. This guy looks like he was a serial rapist, but he's not very interesting. What I'm really wanting to know is who was this young woman from St. Catharines that he married 2.5 years before he was arrested, and what the hell was she doing all the time he was out raping and pillaging?
Yeah, and that comes out in the books, because there's got to be, at least 5 books around that time published on this case. I mean, there was the one that Alan Cairns did. I think he was a journalist for the Sun.
Well, he's not a journalist. He's a newspaper man. There's a distinction.
Gotcha.
So we've got you had
and Nick Prawn for the Star.
Another newspaper man with large feet and a hairy back neck.
Okay.
And a bad mannerism. And not a very good writer. Well, in fact, newspaper men tend not to be good writers. They're challenged beyond 500 words. But that's just one of my picadillos. The media drive me crazy.
Yeah.
And apparently that's the only thing Donald Trump and I have in common. But
I don't know that the fake news is fake news. You know what I mean? That there's quite a bit of the news is fake or so distorted that it might as well be fake.
Yeah, well, one of the main propagators of fake news is Donald Trump himself, so we won't get into that. That's
of course not. And we know everyone knows that. I think even if the supporters kind of know that.
Yeah, that we would hope.
So what I was saying was that a number of books came out at this time, but yours was, in my opinion, the best. It was also the thickest, I think. Mm-hmm. And the reason is because you did focus on Karla, and I think that you wanted to go levels deeper into her, where, for instance, in the Prawn book, I think he kind of took it for granted that she was very much a victim. I don't think I read the one by Alan Cairns.
It wouldn't matter. It's just any newspaper people do what newspaper do, and they regurgitate what they're already covering, what they're already writing, and they simply cobble it together. Prawn was so challenged by the prospect of cobbling things together that he made up characters. He made up a cop who worked for both the Green Ribbon Task Force and the Toronto Metropolitan Police. There was no such person.
Wow.
There was no Toronto police officer who joined. The Toronto Police despised the Niagara Regional Police. These little territorial things are well known. They look down on them.
Yeah.
Not suggesting they should or anything, but they do. I don't know whether it's true today. This is a long time ago. But the Niagara region is an area that's been troubled. Policing has been troubled by virtue of its history, and the Green Ribbon Task Force was a fiasco in its own right, and it extremely extremely challenged by this crime, as even the best of New York City homicide detectives would have been.
Yep.
But they were more challenged because they had absolutely no experience, and they put a man with less than no experience, whose last job was doing the computer systems for the region for police, Vince Bevan. They put a man with less than any experience with serious crime in charge of a task force that drew men from 9, 10 forces. Toronto police wouldn't have anything to do with it. And that is and yet Nick Prawn had a Toronto police officer, an invented character who was a allegedly key man for Toronto and the Scarborough Rapes, and then went over to work on the investigation and murder with Karla and Paul. So, I mean, the books are what they are. I mean, they're done by newspaper people, and this was something that the media missed. Many in the media missed at the time, is that I was in a different position.
I think that what it is with Karla, it's not that she's, she was a good person who was misled or anything. I don't buy that.
I don't think
she
I
has
do either.
Fairly twisted psychology, but it doesn't mean she has a compulsion to violently offend that Bernardo did.
What I would suggest is she simply had a superior psychology and perspective on her life and what was going on. What the mistake people make with Karla is that they give her too much predetermination. She was not in charge. As she said to me many times when I'm the only person outside of the family that she ever corresponded with or talked to or met, and at long-term discussions, let me put it to you that way. She and I talked corresponded for, as people who've read the book are well aware, for about almost 2 years. Mm-hmm. I visited her in prison. We talked a lot.
So you've sat across from her. Wow.
Yeah, absolutely. Attractive young small person, but the issue with Karla is perplexing, because she had people want to ascribe, this idea that she had control of the situation and was manipulating the lawyers, manipulating the police, manipulating everything, when in fact the opposite was true. Her future was determined by 3 men who made the decision, and videotape evidence had nothing to do with her what I would call exoneration, but her light sentence. Mm-hmm. No form of evidence had anything to do with it. They all were aware of the videotapes far beyond what anyone believes. This is all documented at Karla. But the fact of the matter is, 3 men made the decision that she was to be used and seen as a kind of sacrificial goat, and that she would be the lesser of 2 evils, and that she would be dealt with in the way in which she was dealt with for their purposes and for their reasons. And it had nothing, and Karla backs me up 100% on this, as you might think she would. Yeah. But it's true. She and George Walker were pawns in the government's game. Now, George Walker would tell you that. They just did what they were asked to do and what made sense for them to do. Not to suggest that George isn't a great lawyer. He is a very good lawyer, very interesting man. But he did not create the excuse to give Karla 12 years. They came to him with that proposal.
So she was really just acting in her own interests in a situation where she could have gone away for life, and just going, well,
she wasn't acting in her own interest. She was caught in a trap that she didn't see coming. She thought she was going to be. She thought, sincerely believed, that she was going to get away with it.
Yeah, you look at it.
Yeah, they're the best.
All right.
Do you like those? They're good, eh?
Buddy, don't eat that.
What's he eating? Don't eat the paper, bud. It's the bones for you.
It's like a baby. They open the front like...
Buddy, sit.
He doesn't want to bark on it.
Oh, I'm itchy.
Isn't that beautiful?
That's nice.